Welcome into the night shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm your host, Michael D'Arcy, joined by producer Kaden Spruell. And over the next hour, we got you covered on all things Kansas City Chiefs. A lot has happened since our last show. The Chiefs have been officially eliminated from playoff contention with a record of 6-8. Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL and his LCL and is out for the rest of the season. And now 2026 is in question. A lot of stuff has happened. But, Kaden, how are we doing on this very bleak Wednesday night?
I'm doing well, man. Like you said, it's been a long day. It's been a rough week here so far, just trying to process, this is unfamiliar territory for the Chiefs. We haven't been in this position in a very long time. Everybody talks about, Pat being out. But even before Pat was here, we were a very successful team. We were a contending team. So, like I said, just very unfamiliar territory for the Chiefs right now.
And, Sunday's game was a very memorable one for me for all the wrong reasons. I'm actually going to tell this story live on air. I don't think I told you this. I'm on the Pyro team, and we do the special effects pregame where the Chiefs players run through the giant arrowheads, run through the tunnel. Well, there was an equipment malfunction, and the giant arrowhead that is on the field ended up snapping in half, and a metal beam ended up hitting me in the abdomen, lifting me in the air, pinning me against another cart, throwing me to the sideline, and I was just rolling around on the sideline, like near the end zone, in just tremendous amounts of pain. Had to go to the ER. Shout out to KU Med for being great as always. I'm in the emergency room at KU watching the fourth quarter of this Chiefs and Chargers game, and Patrick Mahomes is evading pressure on the run, missteps, lands awkwardly, and right away is holding that left knee. And without skipping a beat, I go, well, he just tore his ACL. That was an ACL right away. I mean, you just noticed by the way that he hyperextended that left knee and then planted, and then the entire world just was holding their breath as Mahomes was laying on the ground in excruciating pain, holding that left knee. And it only took a couple hours after the game to confirm our worst fears that Patrick Mahomes tore both his ACL and his LCL. And the following day, he ended up going down to Dallas for a second opinion by Dr. Dan Cooper, who is known for giving the ACL surgery to different athletes. I think he's also the Dallas Cowboys physician. And Mahomes got surgery on that ACL to get it repaired. He had 2 ligaments repaired in his left knee. And he's already back at rehab after what seemed like the end of the world on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes is on the mend, had the surgery, which is pretty uncommon for an ACL because it takes a couple weeks most times for the swelling to go down in order to operate. But he was able to get the surgery, and now it's just a long road to recovery. And Kaden, I think the Chiefs obviously hate that they're in this position, and I don't want to say they got lucky, but all things considered, not that it happened at the right time, but the Chiefs were 6-7. They were more than likely going to get eliminated, and once Mahomes left and was out indefinitely, you knew the season was over. And then Gardner Minshew threw an interception, and then it officially ended the Chiefs' season. But I think now we can focus and turn our attention to 2026, where there's a lot of reports from Adam Schefter and different people around the organization and just around the NFL that maybe Patrick Mahomes could play week 1, assuming that rehab goes well and he attacks it. And, Rick Burkholder, the Chiefs head training staff, he was talking about the injury, and this is actually, he gives an explanation on what exactly the entire injury entails, and this is what he said.
Immediately following the game, we came down here and did an MRI. That MRI revealed an ACL injury, anterior cruciate ligament, and a lateral collateral ligament injury. That lateral collateral ligament you may see as a posterior lateral corner because there's some other structures back there that constitute that. After that, our doctors, Patrick, his family, his agent, consulted, and then we sought out a second opinion, and the family and agent and Patrick and everybody agreed that he would go to Dr. Cooper in Dallas. Dr. Cooper set up an appointment for him Monday afternoon, and then operated on him Monday night. The reason he wanted to operate on him quickly, where we usually wait on the ACLs, is because the LCL, we wanted to reattach the avulsion injury there. As Dr. Cooper told us after seeing the MRI, and my doctor saw it, they said everything that he had in this injury was fixable, correctable, and it was fixed on Monday night by Dr. Cooper. He had no artery damage, no nerve damage, no joint surface damage, no meniscal damage. He's already started rehab down in Dallas. He was there first thing Tuesday morning, and he'll do that through tomorrow, and then he'll be back here Friday. As you know, in the past with Patrick and his injuries, he attacks them and does very well, and he's in that mode right now. I've talked to him every day. I know Coach has too, and he's already on it. He'll return here Friday, and for the majority of the rehab, he'll do it with my staff, and in particular, Julie Freimeyer, who's done his dislocated patella, his toe injury, and his ankle injuries. Anybody have any questions?
So you did know then that night that there was an LCL injury?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But we wanted to wait until they actually got into the need to disclose that it was that have them examined and everything, to make sure that we had all the right nomenclature on that injury.
And I'm not a doctor, but I'd assume with knee injuries that it's very rare to just tear your ACL. With all the ligaments in your knee, it's pretty safe to assume that another one would probably get torn along those lines. But all things considered, man, it sucks to be without QB1, but if there was ever a time in the season, a moment for this to happen, I think, we've talked about it for so long that the Chiefs need to make a change. The Chiefs are in a position where the offensive scheme is stale. The personnel, it's old. It needs to get completely overhauled in the offseason. You are going to see what this Chiefs team looks like over the next 3 weeks without Patrick Mahomes. And I think a lot of eyes are going to get open, because I don't think people around the NFL, and specifically fans in Kansas City, fully understand how much Patrick Mahomes has carried this team and roster for the last half decade.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I don't think any Chiefs fan would admit it, but I think in the back of their mind, it's always been a thought of, what this team would look like without Patrick Mahomes. And I don't think they'd imagine that it would be under these circumstances or want it to be under these circumstances, but you're going to get a chance to see that now. And, you just look at the season as a whole, in the same way that Pat's season ended is the same way it's been all year. Just trying to do too much. He had to do too much. On that play specifically, he had to get out of the pocket and try to make something happen, and that ended up being the reason why, he injured himself. So, two things that we know about this regarding this injury as far as Pat is, they talked about it. Rick talked about it there in that clip. He's gonna have the best rehab team. You talked about Dan Cooper. He's one of the top,
best surgeon in the country.
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as his rehab team, Bobby Stroop and those guys, they're gonna get him ready to go. And then two things. The second thing is just that he's, like Rick also said, he's gonna attack at full force. He's gonna come back ready. He's gonna be ready to go, as he did with the patellar injury and the toe injury as well. I just hope that he takes the time to really get healed fully this time, because we know, like with the patellar injury in that Super Bowl against the Eagles, he was running on basically one leg. So I just hope that he really takes the time to get fully healthy this time, doesn't rush anything, because if he does, it can cost us next season as well, and we don't need that.
Especially because the timeline that Rick Burkholder gave us could be favorable for the Chiefs in 2026. And I'm going to go ahead and play that clip right now because it's very eye-opening.
Every player's different. Every sport's different. Every position's different. And with him, traditionally, he's going after it so hard, and he's so in tune with what he does that he does it a little quicker. Ballpark on this thing is 9 months. Could be a month or two less, a month or two more. you never know what goes on, and everybody's designed differently biomechanically, and so you just have to go through it. And then he's got, position-specific things that he needs to do. So right now, I'll give you this, early on in the rehab phase, we're doing a lot to get his muscles firing and get the swelling down, and he's in a protective brace right now so that all that surgery heals in.
9 months is the average to return from an ACL tear. Now, you got to understand that Patrick Mahomes also tore his LCL, so there's a little bit more in terms of recovery. But if there is a 2-month period where it could either be 7 months or 11 months or the middle at 9, I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be 11. And just knowing who Patrick Mahomes is and the competitor and his drive for greatness and just to get back to the football field, I'm pretty confident it's going to be before that 9 months. Now, there is an element of your body is in charge of healing, and sometimes you could have all of the motivation and the will to come back, but if your body isn't, then you're just out of luck. But I feel pretty confident saying that he's probably going to come back sooner than 9 months.
Yeah. Pat's definitely going to try his absolute best to come back and be as big of a part as training camp as he possibly can be. As we know, that is a pivotal piece of a successful football team, how they can gel in training camp. And it's gonna be a long, hard process. It's not gonna be anything easy, but I think that he's gonna be ready to go. I agree with you. I'd say it would probably be less than 9 months. I see a lot of people comparing the injury to Joe Burrow's. He he tore his ACL around the same time, and they were able to come back and make it to the Super Bowl the next season. I think that Pat really sees that comparison, and he has a little bit of Jordan-esque in him. He takes notes of all the things that people say about him. So if anybody's counting him out this offseason, I think they're wildly mistaken. I think he's going to come back ready to go.
And you mentioned that part of the reason that led to that ACL tear is that Mahomes was doing too much on Sunday. And what have we talked about on this show for the last 4 months? That the Chiefs need legit talent at running back. And part of the reason that Patrick Mahomes had those knee issues this year, because it wasn't just the ACL. He was banged up and going on the injury report for soreness and knee issues before he tore his ACL, but it's because he's had to run the football more than he really ever has before. And that's because he doesn't trust guys like Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt to actually get positive yardage and move the chains. And it's why you saw him use his legs more this year than he has in years prior, and he wasn't able to sustain that for a 17-game season. And part of it, backup offensive line and guys were banged up, but the Chiefs' inability to run the football definitely led to Patrick Mahomes feeling more pressure to do more plays himself, take it himself, just use his legs because he's so good. But in the past, where he would just keep that for the playoffs, he felt like every week was a playoff game because the team did not help support him in that way.
Yeah. We've seen him in those big games always, use his legs to extend those drives, pick up, third and longs or whatever. But like you said, that's been every game this year. It seemed like a big game. So, it's going to be I don't know. It's something that is. I saw a game or a stat the other day that the Chiefs haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since Kareem Hunt back in 2018. And for an offense that's this explosive and has been this successful, that is just astounding to me. That it doesn't make any sense that, they are still relying on Pat Mahomes at this stage of his career to still be that agile with his legs and make plays. And we talked about it a little bit earlier on in the year, just the explosive rush rate. I mean, they're going to need a big improvement in that area, or else it's going to continue to look like this. They're going to put more pressure on Pat, and with this injury, it's not good. You don't need that from your franchise.
The Chiefs organization has an opportunity to turn this disaster of a season into what spurs on this dynasty. Now you've got Patrick Mahomes coming back from this ACL tear. He's going to be working his ass off, rehabbing to come back. But I think it is going to show them in the long run that we just saw our franchise go down on a Sunday in December. In a year that, if they were being honest, they probably didn't think they were going to compete for anything. But I think they realized by watching what transpired on Sunday that things have got to change. If change wasn't going to happen before Sunday, it's definitely going to happen now, because you cannot afford to have the player that makes your offense and your franchise go not on the football field. And that is what I think is going to spur change this offseason, because they quite literally cannot afford to not have 15 out there. And I think, again, these next 3 games are going to be a telltale sign of the important change that needs to happen this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody thought that this season and seeing Pat go down like that was painful enough, just get ready for the end of the season. And I mean, that game on Christmas Day is looking scary.
It is going to be disgusting.
The Broncos might come in and try to hang 80 on us. I mean, there's no love lost there. So I don't think Sean Payton's going to take it light by any chance. I think he's going to do whatever he can to really put it on us.
And, that presents an interesting question. With the Chiefs being 6-8, they're eliminated from playoff contention. They're not going. They're 1-4 since their bye week, by the way. They are really bad. In the last month and a half, we've seen 1 win.
Yeah, I mean, listen to this. The Chiefs are second to last in the NFL with leads or plays in the fourth quarter that they were leading in, or in which they had the lead. The only team worse than them, take a guess.
The Browns?
The New York Jets.
Oh, my gosh.
Their offense was led by Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor this year, and Brady Cook now. Shout out to Mizzou there. But, yeah, I mean, just ridiculous. That's a ridiculous stat. Only the Jets are worse.
So with them being 6-8 and not going to the playoffs, the question arises, should the Chiefs tank? And I don't know if tank is the right word, but before I give my thoughts, what are your thoughts?
I mean, me and Andy talked about this a little bit earlier. It's hard to really tank whenever you're playing the Raiders. You know, 2 of the last 3 games, I mean, you got the Titans and the Raiders, who arguably are going to be doing the same exact thing. They might be looking at tank too. So it's not something that I would really imagine coming from the Chiefs. It's not something that you could. But like I said earlier, this is unfamiliar territory. The Chiefs have never. I mean, it's like they have been before, but it's been a long time since they've been in this type of predicament. So it's something that I think that they've discussed a lot internally, but I don't see them tanking. I think they'll probably try to do their best to put their best product out there, but I think that they will make some changes along, the depth chart and probably try to get some guys more involved here down the stretch, see what they got in the young guys. I think that's just the most wise thing to do. Yeah.
I think tank is probably the wrong word, because with Andy Reid and this coaching staff, even though their jobs are secure, they're not going to tank. They've got too much pride, and Chris Jones even talked about, this team has to go out and show what they're made of. And even being 6-8, they still feel like they have something to prove. And I think that's fine. Honestly, they're 6-8. They could probably not try to tank, and they're still not going to win that many games. But you look at your schedule, you play the Titans this weekend, you play the Raiders in the final week of the season with the Broncos sandwiched in between that. 1-2 is the most likely outcome, or I guess 2-1 would be the most likely outcome. But I think the Chiefs should be in a mode where, win or lose the game, it does not matter. We just need to see the young talent get out there and develop. I need to see more Jalen Royals, Brashard Smith, Jeffrey Bassa, Kevin Knowles, Noel Williams. I need to see those guys out there getting real-life game reps, and maybe dumb the offense down for Gardner Minshew. Have more under center runs. Maybe try to run the football effectively. There's guys out there that are fighting for their jobs next year, and maybe you can go out there and try to revamp some things. And then when you get Patrick Mahomes back in 2026, he can just continue to carry on the baton. But this Chiefs team should not be trying to just lay down and tank, but they should be trying to play the young guys and get them, reps and snaps. And if they lose, so what? They're not going to make the playoffs, but you've at least got to try to get better in terms of player development. And they have not done that at all this season. And in our next segment, we're going to talk to Caleb James, the lead film analyst over at Arrowhead Pride. You do not want to miss it. Stay tuned on the other side of the break. You guys are listening to The Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome into the night shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm your host, Michael D'Arcy, joined by producer Kaden Spruell. We are momentarily going to talk to Caleb James, the lead film analyst over at Arrowhead Pride, also a contributor on KC Sports Report on YouTube. But I want to get his thoughts on the current state of the Chiefs being at 6-8, mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. It's a spot the Chiefs have not been in for quite some time. And it definitely is worsened by the fact that they don't have QB1. Patrick Mahomes is dealing with a torn ACL and LCL. He's going to be out until 2026. We've heard indications that he could play week 1, assuming that rehab went well and everything went correctly and there were no setbacks in rehab. But again, when it comes to betting on someone overcoming an injury like an ACL, there is not someone that I would rather put my money on and my faith in than Patrick Mahomes. This is someone that has constantly dealt with adversity, whether on or off the football field, and he's always found a way to play through it and be there for his team when he needs to be. I mean, even looking back at a couple years ago where he had his kneecap in the side of his leg dislocated in Denver. He came back a couple weeks later. He was playing through a turf toe injury in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs ended up losing, but he fought it out for his team. In 2023, I guess 2022, he was dealing with a high ankle sprain and was able to play in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals, willed this team to win, and then led them to a Super Bowl victory where he played nearly a perfect second half in order to win. So I absolutely trust Patrick Mahomes' ability to come back from this type of injury. And now we're going to bring into the show Caleb James, the lead film analyst over at Arrowhead Pride. My friend, how are we doing tonight?
Not too bad, man. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad to have you on. Glad to get your insight. Caleb, a lot has happened since we've last talked on KC Sports Report, the podcast. The Chiefs are currently 6-8. They can't make the playoffs. What are you going to be watching for this Sunday when the Chiefs aren't playing for a spot in the playoffs, but in terms of player development and even just going out there for pride, they do have something to play for?
So what I'm going to be paying attention to closely this week is some of these younger guys on the roster who might not have gotten a chance to play a lot of snaps, this season. That's going to be something important to watch for because I think Andy Reid had kind of a stern tone in the press conference on Monday. He dropped a line, it wasn't, and everyone's going to be back and we're going to try to run this thing back. It was we'll see who's going to be here next year. And I think that they're really going to push that level of competition you'll see between the players and, kind of let everyone know, this year was unacceptable by the Chiefs' standard, by the standard they've set. So they're going to need to come in and have everyone ready to compete for next season. And if that means some of the guys on the roster right now aren't on the roster next year, so be it. But everyone's job pretty much sounds like it's open outside of a few select guys.
I haven't asked your thoughts or heard what you had to say about Patrick Mahomes' ACL injury. Take me through what it was like for you to watch it in the moment. What were your instant thoughts and reactions to it? Did you know right away that it was a tear?
You could tell right away because usually Pat's a guy that's going to bounce up quickly unless something is seriously wrong, right? What just had me concerned was that the amount of time he went down and how kind of awkward the play looked. It just didn't feel like a real natural play. It's a play he's made a lot before, but the way that the Deshaun hand kind of got him caught up around the ankle and knee there was kind of it was an awkward motion, right? So you don't feel good about that to begin with, and then you just saw the level of concern from everyone else on the Chiefs sideline there. So it was one of those ones where I wasn't real optimistic from the start, and especially the way the season's gone, there hasn't been a ton of bright spots, so that just kind of seemed like, almost a fitting way for the season to come to an end, essentially.
I was going to say, it almost felt like a disastrous ending to a season that just the Chiefs could never get going. They just could not get out of their own way, and if there wasn't already a nail in the coffin, the Chiefs losing Mahomes, that was the definitive end to their season. And then Gardner Minshew came in and threw a pick, and then they were officially eliminated from the playoffs. But that kind of leads me to my next question. What is your optimism in Gardner Minshew going into this next 3 games? Do you think that he is a capable starter that maybe is on this team next year, barring, Mahomes missing the first month or at least part of the 2026 season? Or is this just a tryout for another team?
I think with Minshew this week, it's going to be just kind of one of those weird deals. I think the Chiefs' offense is going to get exposed for being really bad, and that's partially because a lot of the offensive line is hurt. But the other reason for that being is you're going to see what it's like when a quarterback who's not Patrick Mahomes and who's probably not a starter on a lot of other teams has to go out there and try to win with this caliber of team that can't run the ball, has been underperforming at receiver by far this season, and only has one legit tight end option. So I think you're going to see that. I think there's going to be struggles. You could have potentially even more backup offensive linemen in the game. And at some point in the season, I think they'll probably shut down Creed Humphrey and make sure he doesn't get hurt headed into next season as well.
Caleb James, the lead film analyst from Arrowhead Pride, is our guest. I want to get your thoughts. The Chiefs are in a moment in their season where, I mentioned it at the beginning of our conversation, they're playing for pride. They're also playing to get some young guys, valuable snaps and reps, and to kind of evaluate talent for next season. But should the Chiefs try to lose as many of these games to improve their draft position, or do you want to see the Chiefs go out there and go 2-1 or 3-0 to give them some momentum going into 2026?
I mean, they could go out and win games. It doesn't feel like real momentum. It's not the same as if Mahomes had been here and if they'd kind of figured out what they wanted to do with him. So I don't see a point to win these games. And to be honest, I don't think it's going to be like a super crazy situation where they have to intentionally think. I think it's just going to kind of happen organically because I expect the offense to look pretty poor in these next couple of games. I think the defense has some veteran leadership that I think will step up and want to come out and play hard. Guys like Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, some of the leaders on that side of the ball. But, I mean, they're going to strategically shut guys down. Like Chris Jones shouldn't play another snap this season either. He needs the rest more than anyone for next year. Same with, a lot of these guys across the board, probably with Trent McDuffie, who's gotten banged up a little bit. So I don't see it being like a real strategic, it's not going to be a real strategic tank outside of resting your key guys and letting some of these young guys play a little bit.
It almost comes down to the Chiefs just don't have the talent to beat some of these teams. So, yeah, they might not be intentionally tanking, but like you mentioned, resting starters, it could be very Chiefs 2024 Week 18 against Denver-esque. And I don't know if at this stage in the season it really matters if they go out there and win. You're only going to worsen your draft stock. And, that kind of gets into the NFL draft. The Chiefs are going to have a top 15 pick. I think right now, if the season ended, they'd have a top 12 pick. They'd be picking 12. What do you think is the Chiefs' number one priority going into this draft class? And, if they're picking top 15, what would you say would be the wrong pick and the right pick in the first round?
I think where we can see the Chiefs coming out and trying to make a good impact in the draft right now, there's some good defensive line talent. I think that, there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to draft, running back pretty high. I don't think this is the spot to do it this year. I know you got talented running back class right now, and I think there's talent in the later rounds, but a chance to take like a top 12, top 15 wide receiver, defensive end, or right tackle would be a really enticing situation for them at the current state because there's a lot of talented guys in this draft range where it's going to be like they can long-term 10-year type starter at that spot, and there's a lot of value at that because.
Do you think that defensive end is something that they could target? And if so, are there some names that kind of stick out to you as maybe not premier edge rushers in this league, but have the potential to develop into that? Well, it seems like we just lost Caleb, but I definitely want to get him back on the line and see what he has to say because, when we look towards the NFL draft, this is the first time in a decade where the Chiefs are going to have a top 15 pick and they didn't have to trade up to go get that guy. You can find the top-end talent in the first round, and you're going to have that ability that you haven't had in years in the past where you're picking 31 to 32. The issue is that I've seen, and I haven't dove fully into the NFL draft yet and looked at prospects, but from what I've been hearing from different people who are draft experts, that this draft class is relatively weaker than some of the previous ones. And you've got a lot of teams in the top 10 that are looking to find their quarterback, and obviously the Chiefs are okay there, but to find a premier edge rusher or a premier pass catcher, there really isn't a top wide receiver in this class that warrants going top 10. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of guys that kind of fall through the cracks and end up being good players, but they might not be top 10 picks. And so the question is going to be, can the Chiefs find the value in the first round? And not that there's never not pressure to hit on that first round draft pick, but man, if the Chiefs do not hit a home run with that top 15 pick, it's going to set this franchise back years. I mean, even with the struggles they've had at wide receiver and in running back, they spent a first round pick on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was solid, but he was never good to great. They spent a first round draft pick on Xavier Worthy, and rookie season, that looked great. Second year, left a lot to be desired. And you still feel like wide receiver and running back are needs, are issues the Chiefs need to fix. So you've used, don't even get me started on Felix and Udike Uzama. The Chiefs spent a first round draft pick to draft a defensive end at a K-State by the name of Felix and Udike Uzama. He doesn't play. And when he does play, he's not someone that is going to generate a ton of pressure, generate sacks. So you still need to go out and find someone to pair with the George Karlaftis or Chris Jones. You don't have that luxury because you've missed on so many of the picks. I think we got Caleb back. Are you back?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. So kind of going back to the question on the draft pick, do you think that there is a premier edge rusher the Chiefs could get in the top 15, or is that, an area where you could find a solid player, but he's going to be more like George Karlaftis and less like Micah Parsons?
Well, I think you can get a good edge rusher, kind of maybe like a David Bailey from Texas Tech. I don't think he's a guy that's going to be on the Micah Parsons ceiling that high up there, but I think you're going to get someone a little more athletic than Karlaftis. I meant to mention also a second ago, but the defensive line talent is also really high in general, not just along the edge, but you've got some good interior prospects also. If you are trying to beef up the interior next to Chris Jones, you've got guys like Peter Woods from Clemson, Amare Washington from Oregon. So guys like that who are, big athletes in the middle, they can do a lot of stuff. They can play the run. They can play the pass. I think as you've seen from a team like the Philadelphia Eagles in the last couple of years, you can never have enough of those athletic interior rushers. But they're going to have, they're going to have their pick of pass rushers and kind of where they want them, if that's the direction they decide to go with here, this high pick they're going to have.
Do you think that the Chiefs might have the philosophy of Travis Kelce's probably done, we need to go out and find his replacement, and the tight end from Oregon could be someone, but how important do you think it is that the Chiefs find an edge rusher over a pass catcher that has elite potential? And if so, could you find a quality pass rusher like a George Karlaftis or maybe with higher upside in the second?
So talking about Kenyon Sadiq, the Oregon tight end, he's drawing a lot of attention. He's about like 6'3", 245, so he's not like a big hulking tight end. He wouldn't really be similar to Kelsey in a lot of ways like that. But he's a good route runner in space. He's able to create things. He's not like what you think of as a traditional wide tight end. He's almost like more of a power slot kind of guy. I think the Chiefs would definitely be intrigued to draft a guy like him. I just don't know if that's the direction they should go in right now, because I think what they should probably do is try to get like a bigger bodied tight end, maybe a guy who's a little bit of an inline blocker who can help set up, maybe a run game a little bit better and then a play action game off of that. So, but I think with his ability to catch the ball, and he is a great contested catch guy, he's a great yak guy, I think that would definitely intrigue Andy Reid for what he wants to do. I just don't know if that's the direction they should go in. And then back to the defensive end, topic, they are going to be able to find guys that can play a little bit like George Karlaftis in the later rounds. So I think if you've kind of got that super player you really like, or you have that super, that athletic receiving threat at tight end receiver or something like that, I think that's probably the direction they go in the first round.
Do you think that the Chiefs need to revamp the defensive line just the same that they need to revamp potentially the offensive skill positions when it comes to running back, and you probably need to go get another receiver or two? Because I don't know about you, but I'm kind of over the Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster era. I think they are a couple examples of players that have served their purpose, but the Chiefs are trying to get cheaper and younger, and those guys don't really fit the timeline.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing to consider with this, and the reason I would not rush Mahomes back at all, this team has a lot of issues, and I don't know if they're going to be able to address them all in this free agency period and this draft period. There's a lot to do in a lot of critical spots. We haven't even talked about yet that they're going to have linebackers, probably reinforcements at linebackers, reinforcements on the secondary possibly. So they've got a lot to kind of reload these next couple of years. So I do think that they definitely need a revamping of the defensive line, the receiver core, and the running back room in general. But it's going to take I think it's going to take a couple of off seasons to get where they really need to be with the entire thing. And to throw on the cherry on top, you might need another corner, maybe one more linebacker, and maybe you're still in the market for a right tackle.
So do you think that this is a soft rebuild year?
I think coming up, this could be very much a soft rebuild year. I wouldn't be silly. I know that Mahomes is going to want to press to come back as soon as possible and play. I wouldn't be silly with that. And, I want him to come back healthy. But from an offensive standpoint and scheme standpoint, you got to be able to build something where you can run the ball. And that's where maybe drafting a right tackle and continuing to try to build the best offensive line possible while having a running back also is something you may look into this offseason, because you can start to build the blocks for what you want to do moving forward on offense, right? So that would be something I would maybe take into consideration. I know it's probably not what the Chiefs want to do. It's probably not what Andy Reid is going to want to do, but it's what they should do in a situation like this, because there's a lot they can do off of the run game, build play action. This Mahomes coming back after this injury, we can't look at it like it's going to be the same Patrick Mahomes ever done. I'm not saying that like he's going to decrease in talent. I'm saying that like they need to reinvent a little bit how he plays the game and how he's able to compete as a player. He needs to be able to play from in the pocket more, but the only way he's going to be able to do that is if he's A, comfortable, and B, there's situations where he doesn't just have to shoulder the weight. Look at what the Buffalo Bills have done with James Cook this season. A part of the reason the Bills haven't completely imploded a little bit the way the Chiefs kind of have is because they were smart. They drafted James Cook, and he's able to carry a lot of the weight in that offense, take a lot of pressure off Josh Allen. The Chiefs need to do something exactly like that.
I couldn't agree more. And that's Caleb James, the lead film analyst over at Arrowhead Pride. Go check out all of his work. My friend, thank you for coming on the show. It was a blast, and you definitely gave the listeners a ton of info. And do you want to plug away where people can find your stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you guys are going over to Arrowhead Pride, checking out all the great content over there. The season is technically over, but we're still grinding over there to put out the best work possible. You can follow me on Twitter at CJ Scoobs. I'm going to be doing, for the remainder of the year, I'm going to be doing a lot of like rookie reviews, looking at some of the guys in the rookie class, seeing how they project into 2026. And we're really excited to get the draft coverage started over there. You guys can check out all that. It'll be coming very soon.
And guys, definitely go check it out. He's a great follow on Twitter. But we're going to talk more about this Chiefs and Titans game, and if it really matters and what could happen and what would be the worst case scenario, and we'll do that on the other side of the break. You guys are listening to The Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHP. Welcome back into the Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm your host, Michael D'Arcy, joined in studio by producer Kaden Spruell. And one of the sad things about this Chiefs season is that a legend could be on the way out, and that is tight end Travis Kelce, who has had a really good season. I would say he's a top 5 tight end. At one point, he led all tight ends in receptions and receiving yards, and for a guy that's 36 years old, who had a down year last year, has been a really good option in this Chiefs offense that glaringly struggles when he's not out there on the field. And after the Chiefs' tough loss to the Chargers, he weighed in on what these last 3 games might look like. And listen very closely, because this could be the end for 87.
Yeah, it's kind of unfamiliar territory at this point for a lot of guys in the building, guys that have been there. I'm the only one that's been on the team long enough to see us not make the playoffs. There's an integrity thing here that when you sign up for the gig, you're living out your dreams. You're living out a kid's dream that never got a chance to do this. You're living out, man.
Yeah.
You're playing this game, obviously, to win Super Bowls. You're playing this game to be in those playoff scenarios and stuff. But at the end of the day, man, you're playing in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that's a fucking blessing. That's an honor. It's an honor to be out there. It's an honor to feel the soreness after a game because you're actually out there. You're fucking doing it.
Yeah, you're living your dream.
And no matter if you're getting the fucking ball thrown to you, no matter if you're blocking your tail off and you never, see the pill, it's an honor to be out there in a uniform, playing for the guys around you, playing for your family, playing for the people back home that are watching you, that have known you since you were a little kid, dreaming about this moment, dreaming about these moments being in the NFL. And I'll tell you what, man, if there's a game to be had, baby, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to love playing in it, no matter if it's a game that in the playoffs or gets us in the playoffs or a game that, seems like it doesn't have any implications of that. And that's the integrity you gotta go out there with, man.
Well, that's Travis Kelce on the New Heights podcast with his brother Jason. Kaden, you heard the audio. At one point you thought it dropped, and that's because he took a long pause to kind of gather his thoughts, and you heard him just say, man, that sounds like a guy that knows the end of the road is here, and kind of soaking in the fact, coming to the realization that I have 3 games left in my NFL career. I don't really know how there's any other way to take that.
Yeah, I don't think he would have envisioned in a million years he'd be playing his last 3 without Pat. I think he always imagined they'd ride off into the sunset well, not together, because Pat still got a lot of time left. But he always envisioned he'd be right next to 15 going out, and this is not. Obviously, it's not going to be that. It's completely different than what he probably imagined. So, yeah, he sounds very defeated. And as he said in the clip, he's the only guy on this team that's been here that's seen a team that hasn't made the playoffs, which is crazy. It just speaks to the greatness of this Chiefs team over this last decade. So, yeah, very, very tough to hear Travis that down, man.
They have been so dominant over the last 7 years that Travis Kelce has every right to be defeated. I guarantee you that he did not come back for the season knowing that there was any possibility they weren't going to make the playoffs. I think he thought that this team had all of the makings to go back to the Super Bowl, and they went to the last 3 before this season, so it was a pretty safe bet, but things just haven't worked out. And his brother Jason in Philly went out after his team. The Eagles made the playoffs in his final year, but they weren't very good. They were a shell of themselves. This was actually in 2023 after the Chiefs beat the Eagles in 2022 Super Bowl. And Jason Kelce ended up playing one more year. The Eagles got eliminated, I think, in the first round of the playoffs, and he retired. And it seems like Travis Kelce is going to follow in his brother's footsteps and go out after these 3 games. And man, that's a shame, because we're watching the last of the best tight end to ever play this game. And if there's ever a reason to tune in on Sunday with the Chiefs eliminated and with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, it's because number 87's out there. He talked about integrity. He's going to go out there and give it his all. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got 10 to 15 receptions on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, and I could play the clip if you want here in a second, but he talked about, I don't think there's any comment that's more telling than when he said, the Chiefs are going to have to find a way to get it, Pat back, or, just referencing the Chiefs as like something that he's not a part of, which it's so crazy to hear Travis make a comment like that, man. But it's just the truth. It's reality. It's what we got. It's what we're gonna have to face moving forward. But yeah, I can play that clip if you want to listen.
Why don't we go ahead and play it, because okay. I do think, like you said, it is very telling about. It's not it's the Chiefs. And usually when Travis Kelce talks about the team, it's we got to do better, or we did a good job at this. When talking about Patrick Mahomes' injury, he gave a very interesting answer.
He's a warrior, man. I'm telling you, this guy's played through everything, battled through everything, has been crowned champion because he's battled through everything, and he's going to battle through this. It's the only way this guy is wired, man. He's a fearless warrior when it comes to this football thing, and he's going to make sure that he comes back stronger than ever, and hopefully the Chiefs can get him back as soon as possible. I know right now it's kind of right around that week 1 or the beginning of the season next year. So I know he's going to be doing everything he can to get back out on that field for the Chiefs as soon as possible, man.
I know we probably shouldn't read too much into it, but something about him saying the Chiefs instead of we, that kind of got me a little bit. It's like, wow, we are, watching the end of an era. And that's why, as we watched Patrick Mahomes get helped up the tunnel and in a very miserable but poetic way, he passed all of the AFC championship banners, the AFC West title banners, the Super Bowl championship banners, the multiple that they have won. Seeing that scene paired with Travis Kelce likely nearing the end of his road, it's like the dynasty is not over, but the dynasty as we know it is over. And what a hell of a 7 years, Kaden. I mean, it does not get any better than the football that we have watched for more than the last half decade. And this is something that I feel incredibly blessed to cover and talk about. And even with uncertainty in the future, 15 is going to be back on that field someday. Whether it's 2026, it's going to be 2026. But whether it's week 1, whether it's week 8, whether it's week 5, when you got 15, you're always going to have a chance.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I honestly, I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but me personally, it just feels like this is kind of something that we needed, both for the Chiefs as a team and as fans. Just a deep breather, just to kind of relax and just have some time to reset. And I'm excited to see how they'll attack these next 6 or 7 7-8 years, because Pat still has a lot of football ahead of him. It may not be his best football. We don't know that yet. We'll see how he comes back from that. But he still has a lot of football ahead of him. There's still a lot of good young players on this team. Obviously, we know they got to make a lot of moves in the offseason. There's going to be some emotional decisions, some business decisions. So we'll see how those decisions shake out.
And the Chiefs have gone on an unprecedented run, something that nobody in Kansas City thought was possible. And the amount of joy and happiness that 15 and 87 and Andy Reid have brought us over this decade, it's truly special. And I'm excited to see how the Chiefs can retool this machine, bring in new life, bring in new talent to make this team better so they can get back to the Super Bowl. And, Patrick Mahomes, he's got a couple more of these up his sleeve. And I think as long as you put the talent around him, you're going to be in a good spot. But it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. But that is the job of Brett Veach, who is going to have a make-or-break offseason. But that's all we have for this show. You guys can check both Kaden and I out on the KC Sports Report on YouTube. Go follow us both on Twitter. Until next time, guys, thank you for listening to The Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHP.